Yeah, my name's Ed Zorn. This year I have the pleasure of serving as your chairman for the Political Action Committee. That means I get to go into the back little room over there and really get all the nitty-gritty details of all the things that Kathy does to bring back all that great news of what's happening in the California legislature. This year I also serve as state director, and I'm serving on the REALTOR Action Fund committee at the state level. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the REALTOR Action Fund and those different levels of commitment. Today, what I'm really going to talk about here is how did we do last year? You know, I gave a presentation last year talking about various laws and how that impacted your business. And we're going to do a little bit of review of how we did. I'm going to look again at a typical sale, okay? And then what proposed laws are out there and how is that going to impact our buyers and our sellers, okay? We're going to calculate that financial impact on the bottom line. We're also going to talk then about how you can participate personally in the political process and how your role is critical to your business. And then where does your money go, right? Ray's doing a great job, his wife Patricia up here asking for that money. How is that money spent and how is that divided? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The REALTOR Action Fund basically raises money to advance the goals for us as realtors. The money goes to political action committees, of which we have one here. It goes for local issues, and it's also spent on candidates that are supportive of real estate. Okay, last year's threats. Those of you, who was here last year? Okay, so I'm going to draw your minds back. What we talked about last year was a $300,000 sale, right? I had a little picture of a house up there. We talked about a $300,000 sale right here in the city of Corona. What happened? We talked about the 3% withholding tax. Right? This was where you were going to have to pay to the state government taxes of 3% of every dollar of your commission that comes in. Right? We talked about how that number would probably increase over time. We also talked about point of sale requirements. These were environmental rules requiring you to replace windows, replace insulation, do different things. And we talked about a typical home we walked through here. It costs about $6,500. To do those point-of-sale mandates. They were also last year proposing a service tax. So who knows here, everyone here pay a sales tax when you go to the store? Yeah, how would you like that same tax applied to your commission? So that not that you would pay it, but your buyer or your seller would have to pay a tax on the amount of money you took out on a commission. Okay? That's what was proposed last year. We walked through how that would impact your business. Okay? Basically, in essence, when you ran through all of these numbers, what we calculated on a $300,000 sale is that it would cost $10,560. Some from the buyer, a lot from the seller, some from your pocket as an agent. Okay? So what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about how we did last year with the money we spent through the REALTOR Action Fund. We successfully avoided that 3% independent contractor withholding tax. So give yourselves a big round of applause. We actually beat that one back. So your money matters, okay? We also avoided that particular version of the point of sale bill, okay? So we are not required as sellers to make updates to the home for certain energy standards. So again, that is a big ticket item for sellers' pockets.
They may still be there.
Yeah, all of these things, and Kathy's already reminded me, these are all beat back right now. But don't think they won't bring them back, okay? We also avoided the service tax. So all the three things that we talked about last time, our voice as realtors were heard, and we were able to defeat each of those items, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about what happened with that money. What is the REALTOR Action Fund levels? And Ray had talked about that a little bit. If you're a Sterling R, that means in 2012 or in 2013, you contributed $1,000. Please stand up.
Or you're a chartered golden R.
Or you're a chartered golden R. Sorry, for those of you who've been around for a while, so you pay $500 to sit there. These are the big boys, okay? These are the guys that are holding up the weight. Don't sit down.
Don't sit down.
Stand up. It's good for you to stretch your legs, okay? Manny, stand up. You're our newest California Silver Bear. And if any of you are Silver Bear from 2012 or 2013, please stand up.
Yay.
All right, big hand. These are what we call in the REALTOR Action Fund your major contributors. Major contributors. These are the guys that pull the weight for others who don't contribute. So thank you very much for the major contributors. Stand up. Don't sit down. Next level is the 148. This is called the true cost of doing business. Why do we call it that? Because the state of California here, for the California Association of Realtors, spends, I believe it's $197 for every realtor in the state of California. You only pay $49 on your dues. That's it. That means you have to pay $148 to carry your own weight.
They just hired 2 people to read
Right.
the bills because we have so many
Yeah,
bills.
well, I'll go through all those details. So 148, if you did 148 and you're pulling your own weight in the state, stand up. 2012 or 2013. Well, everybody give this group of people a round of applause because this is why we won last year on all of those bills. Okay, thank you very much. Now everybody in the room is popping up for $49, right? Everybody puts $49 in as part of your dues, and I'll go through how those monies are spent differently. Okay, let me go through and then I'll.
Well, my question is only realtors can contribute, or can affiliates also become?
Affiliates do.
Affiliates do contribute.
We have several
So
affiliates.
thank you to the affiliates also who have participated in this process in protecting real estate. You're a very important part of what we do. Okay. Where did we not make it last year? Okay. We endorsed a particular candidate that's been very supportive of real estate, okay, and he lost. And that happens. That's part of the process. You can't win everything, okay? So we endorsed Jeff Miller. He didn't win his Senate seat. But again, talking about money, there's a quote here from the newspaper to talk about, because of its importance, this race was one, if not the most expensive legislative contest in the year. $8 million spent on a local Senate race. And that was right here in our district, okay? So I don't know, some of you got maybe a couple of flyers in the mail from a couple of those guys maybe, okay, who live around here. Okay, so a lot of money goes into these important races. Now, Major General Senator Richard Roth is our new state senator, and Danny stepped up to be a key contact, and our goal as realtors is to develop a relationship with them. Keeping in mind that as realtors, we're not party affiliated, we're the realtor party, okay? And in fact, and maybe Frank can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we probably contribute more to the Democratic side of the aisle than we do the realtor. If you read Republican, if you look at up and down the state.
It's 60-40.
60-40. So we're the realtor party. We give money to both sides, about 60% to the Democrat, about 40% to the Republican. Okay? And so it's important to forge these relationships. I've had the opportunity to meet some of the staff members from Senator Roth. Right now, they're talking a good game. They seem to be very business friendly. He has a very good attitude. I really like their guys on their staff. They're real friendly. They're at all the different meetings. They look very happy and engaged. So we're looking forward to hopefully having a great relationship with Senator Roth and letting him know about what's happening here in real estate. So let's go on to the deal. Okay, I'm going to talk about a different house this time. Okay, this is a home right here in Corona. It's a closed sale, and it sold for $369,000. Right, 2,700 square foot home. Nice neighborhood, built in 1966. That should remind us of what happened last year, right? This home would be subject to all those environmental point of sale mandates if we didn't beat back that law last year, okay? It was a short sale, however. And the loan balance on this home was $512,000. Okay, so these are the numbers in the deal we're going to work with. First thing we're going to talk about is short sale forgiveness, right? California law today. The taxes for debt forgiven in a short sale is taxed as ordinary income. Did everybody in here know that? Okay, that can be a problem, right? As part of the fiscal cliff deal, right? The Federal Mortgage Debt Relief Act of 2007 was extended for an additional year. So on the federal level, a personal residence is not going to be taxed for debt forgiveness. But California has not matched that yet. We have sponsored it at California Association of Realtors, two bills, one on the Assembly side, Assembly Bill 42, and Senate Bill 30, that simply asks the legislators in the state of California to conform California law to federal law, which is exactly how it had been done the previous, I think, 4 years. Okay. Right now, my understanding is that is in what they call a suspense file, which means they've pulled them out of committees, throw them into a bucket, and they're waiting for the legislature to approve the budget. Because these bills, from their perception, impact tax revenues into the state. And I've heard numbers, was it 50 billion that they were throwing around? Does anyone here who represents a seller who lost their home in short sale or foreclosure think that they're going to be cutting a check to the state government for taxes? But the analysis office is saying passing this law will cost the state $50 billion. This is one of the major things we were fighting when we were up in Sacramento. What is the actual tax ramification of our house? Okay, the IRS 1040 form, you're not going to be required this year to put anything down on it. All right. In California, you get to fill out a form 540, and you're going to do Schedule CA. Okay, go to line 21. Under Other, you get to put in the words mortgage forgiveness debt. All right, and here's what the rule is: if the amount of debt relief for federal purposes is more than the California limit, include the amount in excess of the California limit on line 21F, column C, blah, blah, blah. It's $143,000. $143,000 is the debt relief on our deal. So here's a nice little form, right? You put your little seller in, you put down its mortgage forgiveness, and it goes down on the income side, right? It's income of $143,000. Think that might impact your taxes a little bit? Okay, 143 grand. These are all over the internet. I love these little tax estimators. You really want to get depressed at night, go play with one of these. Okay, income tax estimator. I took the median family in the state of California. $61,632. That's the median average household income in the state of California. Okay. Let's say they're married, have a couple kids, so they get a little, they're going to be itemizing some of their deductions. What does that mean? They would pay $1,312.32 in taxes. That's what your seller would pay in taxes. If our proposed law would pass, that is also what they would pay in taxes at the state level. Let's do it with the extra $143,000. Now you put into the computer $204,632. A little bit more in taxes, you think? How about you're now going to cut a check to the state for $13,671.70? Welcome to the higher tax bracket. Okay? In case you weren't doing the math, that means the seller will pay on this home right now, and this home closed, I believe, this year. This seller of this home would have to pay the state government $12,359.38. Do you think that might have an impact on some of your sellers? Okay. Leaving that fun subject, let's talk about the mortgage interest deduction. We just talked, Frank came back from to one of the hot issues right now going on at the federal level, right? This is now a federal issue, right? And the IRS allowing you the privilege, I guess, to deduct your mortgage interest. What does that mean for this? It's under attack. These are some just little headlines that you see on the internet, various blogs, various newspapers, right? Here's from the Ladder, the inefficiency of the mortgage interest deduction. The Atlantic, why the mortgage interest deduction is terrible, right? Mortgage interest deduction under attack. What's the problem with the mortgage interest deduction? This now is going to get into your worldview. It's going to really be dependent upon how do you look at who owns money, okay? The perspective here, and this is taken directly from one of these articles, when they crunch these numbers, is that only 14% of households who earn less than $40,000 take the deduction. What they basically argue here is that households, the little clicker doesn't work on the screen, that make over $200,000, which apparently now our new sellers gets to be one of those households this next tax year, the deduction is 10 times that of the households who make between $30,000 and $40,000. My response to that is, duh. How much taxes does the guy who makes $200,000 make compared to the guy who does $40,000? Realize that people who make a household income of $40,000, most of them will pay zero in federal tax. Last time I checked, it's pretty hard to get a tax deduction when you're already paying zero.
A lot of them get money back too.
Yeah, and I was not going to go down there. But a lot of them will get money back.
I see it every day.
But when you hear these arguments about the regressive nature, that's the phrase you're going to hear. Regressive nature of the mortgage interest deduction. It's important for you guys to understand how to argue this. You might be at a soccer game with your kids, at a church group, at some other social event, and these issues might come up. You as realtors can do more than just contribute money. You guys can contribute ideas. Okay, you guys can contribute argument and persuasion to other voters out there, and that's part of our job. Okay, so you need to have an understanding of why this really isn't a regressive tax. Again, of course it's going to be 10 times as much for the people who are paying taxes versus someone who's paying zero. Okay? Yeah.
The phrase they're using, they're calling it a loophole.
Yes, a loophole. And I think the National Association of Realtors is attacking the concept that home ownership is a loophole. Okay? So you're going to start to see some aggressive marketing from the National Association of Realtors protecting this benefit of home ownership. Okay? That homeowners are not a loophole. This is a chart that a lot of those who are attacking the mortgage interest deduction like to point out. And again, what you see here is that at the very top of the chart are the lower income levels. And what you see is very few of them take the deduction. Again, why would you need to itemize your deductions if you're paying zero taxes or a couple $1,000s in taxes? Take the standardized deduction. You would never itemize. And then as you go down the chart, it gets larger and larger. You actually see the biggest group of taxpayers taking the deduction make between $100,000 and $200,000. There's almost 14 million homeowners taking that deduction at that price range. Okay, and again, it's a worldview issue from the standpoint that those who are attacking this mortgage interest deduction, have you heard phrases like this? We've lost our money. Well, whose money was it? Right? I mean, whose money is it? The attack really are coming from the perspective that all the money belongs to them, and if we keep some of it because of a deduction, somehow they lost some money. You know, so you have to be aware of how those attacks are, and in your mind have a prepared answer for that. Right? Point out some of these facts to your friends who are for this, because every person you convert to giving them this information makes them a more informed voter. And that's important all the way around. Okay. So what does that mean in our transaction? Okay. Let's assume that our buyer here on this home put 3.5% down. Okay, got a nice little FHA loan, right? And they got a loan amount of $356,000. What does that mean? Well, in the first year, because of additional deductions you can take in regards to your loan, with regard to points and other things like that, there's actually a deduction of $5,615. That's how much the buyer was going to be able to write off on this year's tax return. At the bottom there, you see on an annual basis, they will make a deduction of $2,745. Anyone here represent a buyer?
Yeah.
Last couple of years?
Okay. That's not a deduction, that's the actual tax savings.
Excuse me, you're right.
Deduction is much bigger.
Thank you very much. John pointed out a great point. That is actually the tax savings. That's cash in your pocket. Excuse me, I did misspoke. The deduction is much greater. The deduction amount is the actual amount of the whole interest you paid for the whole year. Right? But that results in this tax bracket here, someone in the 25% tax bracket with only 9% at the state level, that results in an actual dollar savings in your pocket of $5,615. Thanks for that clarification. And $2,700. Anyone ever use this when talking to a buyer?
Yes.
Right? Has it ever been the decision-making fact with a buyer deciding to buy a home?
Absolutely.
A few times, right? I'm hearing some shakes of the head, right?
Especially when they're a renter.
Right,
Yeah.
especially if they're a renter, right? Because a renter gets to deduct what? Nothing. Okay? So sometimes we use this as realtors, as one of the tools in our arsenal to talk about the benefits of home ownership and why it's better to buy. Okay? How would you like it if this arrow was taken out of your quiver? And that's what we're talking about right now, at the federal level. Okay? Anyone know who this guy is? Yeah, you young bucks in here don't know that. Don't see that, recognize that face. That's Howard Jarvis, the tax revolt of the 70s, right? of Prop 13. What's Prop 13, right? It basically does a couple of different things. Proposition 13 keeps the basis of taxes at around 1%, although we know it's a little bit more than that. The key is that it keeps the assessed value of the taxes growing at only 2%. Why does this matter? My wife's grandpa has lived in a nice home in Costa Mesa, which is now probably a rehab project, since 1977. He bought that for a little bit less than what it's worth now. Okay? About $48,000. I would say today it's worth $450 plus. He is a great gentleman. He was a laborer, construction guy, union guy, fixed income. What would happen if his taxes were based on $450,000? I can tell you about 20 years ago, him and grandma would have had to move. They would have to sell their home simply because they couldn't afford to make the tax payment. That is the underlying principle in the state of California for Prop 13. Anyone know here in California that our prices maybe appreciate a little more than other places in the country? We just talked about 10% in 1 year. Okay? We go up hard and we crash hard, and it's what makes it a heck of a lot of fun to do real estate in the state of California. It's fun, okay? I love California. I would hate to live in Oklahoma where it goes up 2% a year every year, and on a big drastic year it goes down 1%. Okay? That's how it is in other parts of the country. It's not like that here. Okay? There's another thing that Prop 13 did that's critically important. It limited the raising of taxes to a 2/3 vote. That was both in the legislature and at the local level, so that local entities, school districts, cities, counties, other assessment areas have to go in front of the voters to ask for a 2/3 majority before you can raise taxes. Those items are under attack. Oh. Uh-oh, hang on a minute. Manny, I think that email went out. Okay. Okay. So, let me see if it's got my clicker back in here now. Okay. No clicker. There we go. Okay. This is the California Tax Reform Association. I actually heard a debate between the head of this association and the head of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association when we were up at CAR. I love their tagline: fair taxation for a healthy public sector. What's a healthy public sector?
Government.
Government. What's a healthy government mean?
More revenue.
More revenue. So I think a fair way to say that is more taxes for bigger government. Same phrase, just different words, same idea. Okay? They are very much opposed to Prop 13. And you see here on their website, they have articles that they write, right? And they advocate, let's get rid of Prop 13. Okay? And it makes sense, right? If you're for fair taxation for a healthy public sector, you want more tax revenue. One of the things here is it's time to tinker with the untouchable Prop 13, right? And trust me, Jerry Brown, right, here's a little thing about just a little adjustment. Let's just make some little changes with Prop 13, guys. That's how this is going to be presented to you. No one is going up saying, let's eliminate all Prop 13 for everybody. No one is saying that. Okay? Kinda. They're just tinkering with the edges. Chris Thornburg, Beacon Economics. He's actually my favorite economist. I have the highest and utmost respect for his economic analysis. And I love Chris because he doesn't care what you think. He's going to tell you the way it is. His statement in March 2012, he was actually testifying in the California Assembly in front of the Revenue and Taxation Committee on what? A hearing to look at adjusting and eliminating Prop 13. These hearings are going on, guys. He said, I can't think of one reason in the world why Prop 13 should exist. I think it's an awful regressive tax. That's from my favorite economist. Okay? Again, the arguments for eliminating Prop 13 deal with why should someone who's owned their property for a long time pay lower taxes than the couple and the new family that moved in next door? Well, let me ask, and they argue that this tax helps, quote, the wealthiest. Let me tell you about my grandfather who has that home that now has $450,000 equity in it. You want to know what car he drives? 1989 ugly green Mazda pickup truck. How much bread at the grocery store did my grandfather buy last week because he has $450,000 of equity in his house?
0.
0. How many gallons of milk did he buy? How many medical bills did he pay with the $450,000 of equity in his house last year? How much gas did he put in his car? Nothing. Because he's got $450,000 of equity in a home doesn't change how he lives month to month. It does if he sells it and cashes it out and does something else with the money, but not just because he's lived there for 30 years. Is this tax really regressive? That's their argument. His last argument, Prop 13 has fueled California's business unfriendly reputation because it's forced lawmakers to hike sales taxes, corporate taxes, personal income taxes to make up for, here it is, the property tax shortfall. We have a property, did you know that? California have a property tax shortfall. We're under. California tax rating. Sales tax, 7.5%. Where are we in the country? Number 1.
Actually, it's higher.
Well, it depends on that state.
Well,
Other cities and counties have
no, but
bumps.
we have the new
Personal income tax, 13.3%. Where does that put us in the country?
number 1.
Yay, we're number 1.
Gasoline tax. When you put all the gasoline taxes together, do you guys realize you're paying over 70 cents a gallon in taxes?
Yeah.
Where does that put us in the country?
Number 1.
But we got the best.
Corporate tax. Hey, here's a plus, guys. Corporate tax rate, 8.84%. Hey, we're not number 1.
Yeah.
We're number 8.
We might get there though.
Okay, so we all know that we're tax heavy in California, but we have Prop 13 and others don't. So I think Chris is a great economist. Where are we? Oh, let me finish corporate taxes. We are number 1 in the West. So I had to slide down to the West for that. Property taxes, guys. Where are we? Okay, we have a short, and we are. We're not number 1. Trust me, we're nowhere near number 1 in property tax, right? We have Prop 13. Where are we? 42, 48, 49. We have a shortfall of property tax. Where are we? Give me some numbers. Where do you think we are? Middle. Danny's got middle. Maybe 25, 28, something like that.
33.
33. Give me one.
Top 10.
And we're not top 10. Right? Our shortfall, we pay $1,458 per capita, and we have a shortfall, right? We're 15. We are the 15th highest property tax state in the country, and we have a property tax shortfall, even though we're number 1
Pennsylvania has
in sales tax, income tax, and gasoline tax.
Pennsylvania has city and county taxes and a $60,000 house. In many areas of Pennsylvania,
Right.
they pay $20,000 worth of
Right.
taxes.
And that's what would happen. Well, and to keep in mind, we're 15th with Prop 13. What happens if you eliminate it? Right. We can have it all. Okay. So my only point in this, only got 10 minutes, so I got. My point in this is: are we really experiencing a property tax shortfall in the state of California? Come on. We're 15th highest in the nation. Okay. Again, these are more things about Prop 13 under attack. Again, there's a multi-year strategy to run reform by this critical piece of budget revenue. Again, it's a budget revenue problem. That's what they're saying. A budget revenue problem. Really? Okay. Here's a resolution from the California Democratic Party. Therefore, be it resolved that California Democratic Party supports commercial property tax reform that will require commercial properties to be reassessed regularly while maintaining residential property owners' protections under Prop 13. One problem, one good thing there, right? What's the problem? I'm a commercial guy. I see the problem. Prop 13, reduction for commercial has a big impact. Okay, it's also a chink in the armor to moving forward. The benefit there is they're making a commitment that we're going to maintain residential property owners' protection of Prop 13. That's great. That is great. Okay. Howard Taxpayers Association, though, says major threats to Prop 13 and homeowners. Well, what's that about? What that's about is all of these bills and proposed constitutional amendments are put forth in the legislature, reducing the voting threshold from 2/3 down to 55%. All of them. And 2 Wednesdays ago, they all came out of committee, every one of them. Okay? We are the realtor party, okay? But some of us are Democrats, some of us are Republicans. This is an important point. As realtors, if you're a Democrat, this is the position your party has taken. I'm pretty sure if Manny over there, who's pretty much a devout Republican, puts a call in to the leadership of the Democratic Party, they're not really going to care what Manny says. Not that any of us do. But if you are a Democrat, right, again, this is a way you guys can participate. You're critical and important to the Realtor Party. Right? What are you guys doing inside of your caucus to educate your leaders about taking a stand like this? It's important for all of us to be involved at wherever we find ourselves. And whichever party you're a part of, you need to represent the Realtor Party. Okay? So both sides are important. And right now, because of the makeup of the legislature, I'm going to suggest those of us who are Democrats, right, have a really important role to play right now. It's really critical to have them become realtors and engage and understand these issues. Remember, all of these, the 55% reduction also applies to a house. I understand what they wrote down, that they're not attacking Prop 13 for residential, but last time I checked, residences pay property taxes and have a lower threshold. Same thing with infrastructure financing. They all apply to a home on the voting side. Split rolls. This would be limited to commercial. What they're talking about doing is having a different rule for commercial, a different rule for residential, but it's a chink in the armor. If they succeed on that commercial, trust me, a couple of years later, it's right down to residential. So let's go through our lost money. Short sale debt forgiveness. Seller's going to pay $12,359. Buyer, mortgage interest deduction lost, $5,615. That's just year one. There's an additional $2,700 a year. What happens if the Prop 13 voting threshold goes down? It's going to drive property taxes up across the board. I have no idea what that number amount's going to be. I didn't include in here from a time standpoint, but we just heard going to $90 per piece of paper file. That's $500 to $600 every deal. So add that to our total. Lost money, $17,947. I'm going to suggest to you it's a little over 18 grand if the recording fees go into account. Anyone think that's going to impact some people's decisions on what to do with their real estate?
Yes.
Maybe impact your business? Okay. What's that going to look like for your commissions, right? There's one other issue I'm going to go through real fast. It's a private transfer tax. It's got defeated recently and put to a 2-year bill, so it's not going to come back till next year. This has to do with commercial properties, environmental improvements. I'm going to go real fast. It's basically a transfer tax of 2%. Okay, and again, it's a chink in the armor. If they do it here in commercial, trust me, they'll try it next on residential.
It's already on residential.
Right. So what's going to happen? Here's a simple example. You'd spend $40,000 to replace the windows in this commercial building. Right. The building's worth $3 million. You sell the building, that tax is 60 grand. So yes, I spent $40,000 to put the windows in, and I get a financing vehicle. Well, they'll give me the 40 grand. What I agreed to is to put a 2% tax on my property. So the finance company gets 60 grand back. Not a bad deal. In fact, if this goes through, I'm not kidding. I'm going to invest in this company. I'll tell you why. 60 grand on the first sale. 10 years later, that guy decides to sell it. Property value goes up to $6 million. It's a 120 tax. Sold again in 10 years. $8 million value. 160 tax. Oh yeah, 25 years later, what do I have to do? I have to replace the windows. That doesn't matter because you get to pay the tax again, even after you replace the windows. Again. Right? Value keeps going up. Basically, it's $620,000 in taxes for a $40,000 window replacement. I want to invest in the company if they can pull this off. Think that's a good return?
Yeah.
Hand someone 40 grand, get 620 grand over the next 25 years? I'll take it. You want to compare this to residential? Lop is zero off. $4,000 of repair on a $300,000 home will eventually result in $62,000 worth of taxes. Slop is zero off. Okay? The purpose of the California Association of Realtors, in addition to serving its membership, developing professionalism, is to promote the preservation of real property rights. Your contribution to the REALTOR Action Fund is what does that. We already talked about the levels. Everybody in this room should be 148. I don't accept any excuse for not. You're all doing enough deals to do 148. Lop off a couple Starbucks, you'll get there. Where does your money go? We all pay $49. That's on the left here, the REALTOR Action Assessment. That money is limited on how we can spend it. On the right, you see the Realtor Action Fund voluntary contribution at $148. You notice on the right that it goes to pre-pack and federal. That $55 of every $148 goes to the federal level. We can give no money from the $49 that's part of your dues to the federal government or for federal purposes. What does that mean? Mortgage interest deduction. Not one penny or $49 can go to fighting the mortgage interest deduction issue. That must come from voluntary funds. We are also capped on how much we can give a state legislator or a congressman on the $49 automatic dues removal money. We don't have the same kinds of limitations. We have much more freedom of how to spend the money and how to use the money on the voluntary contributions. That's why the voluntary contributions are so critical, okay? So I don't think I have time for questions, but thank you very much, all of you, for your participation, and you can always pay right through those doors.
On page